Hi guys, it's DBR back for another video, and this video is going to be a very personal one and a very hopefully not emotional one. So a few years ago, 2 years ago to be exact, I put up a video that is extremely controversial, but I wanted to get the point out there to anybody that um, may be struggling with that particular subject of adoption or trying to find your birth family or anything like that. Um, I feel like an expert in that area now. I was adopted at the age of 2, and I never knew who my parents were until 2016. I never knew who any of my family members were until 2016. And I got a lot of questions underneath that video that I had to delete the majority and filter out a lot of them, so which left like none. Because they were so deeply personal to me. But I wrote them all down and I kept them near and dear. And even though that video has caused a lot of drama in my family and here on YouTube, I still decided that I was going to do a part 2, because I think that you guys really do deserve a part 2 and deserve some answers to those questions that I said I was going to answer and I just never did. So I had to go through and pull them all, and this is probably going to be my most personal video. And thank you guys so much for 1.1k views on that video, and I hope this one does just as just as good, if not better. Let's top it. Let's get to 2.1k or something. Um, oh my God, here we go. So the first question was, do you remember finding out that you were adopted? Um, I think I eventually caught on because I'm like, my skin don't match your skin, so something's fishy around here. So yes, I do. What was the question? I do remember finding out because it was very young. It was very young. They say that kids don't see color. We most certainly do. Babies don't see color, but kids do. And as I was going, into elementary school, I never really gave it a second thought, but I remember other kids kind of looking at me when I would walk into like an open house or the first day of school with my parents, and they're like, hmm? And then I got a little older, and then people would just kind of like question it, like, who are they? And I'm like, those are my parents. And but it doesn't really come natural for that to be the first thing that rolls off my tongue because I was just so used to it. But found out pretty easily, clearly. I mean, do we look alike? Like, no. So, um, what is my family like? My family, as I would like to put it, is like a hootenanny without banjos, meaning we're, the most dysfunctional thing you can ever see, and it's like a circus act here, really it is. And we pretty much stay in our own areas. We don't really converse with each other at all for any reason. We're happy roommates, as I like to say, because we're not really siblings, and we're not close that way, and we're never gonna be close that way. Like we're not the Kardashians in any way, shape, or form. This might be the modern day Brady Bunch, but we are not. We're just not. No. So my family is a hot mess, and I hardly claim them. Anyways, next. So did you ever go through a phase of feeling upset that you were adopted? I'm still going through that phase. So I don't really think it's a phase. I think it's something that you're not really going to escape. It's just something that's going to be a part of you for as long as I live, because there's just going to always be a part of me that wonders what my life would be like and what my interest would be and where I would be exactly if I were raised by the people I was supposed to be raised by, that didn't do their job and have robbed me of the opportunity of feeling um, normal, in a sense, feeling like I belong, feeling like a regular African American male, feeling like everyone else. So, next question. When did you decide that you wanted to track down your birth parents? Now, I did a video on this, but I did one out of spite, and I really regret that, and I didn't take it down because I figure that that video kind of shows my growth as a human being and as a person, and people do change their mind and their mindset, and things are a little different. And I was angry at the time, so I'm gonna clear that up now. Um, I never wanted to know. I never wanted to know. I feel like the people around me wanted me to know more than I wanted to know. They were like, you can't leave this earth without at least finding out something. And I'm like, but I don't care to know. So, my foster mother, I have three sets of parents. Let's start with that. I have my foster parents that had me from the day I was born until I was 2 years old and got legally adopted. I have my adopted parents that I listen to now, that I respond to, that I call mom and dad, and that have raised me from 2 all the way up to 21. So them, and then I have my real parents. So I have three sets of parents, but let's start there. So my foster parents, um, have been in touch with them my whole life. My foster mother was the one who was like, "You're not gonna want to leave this earth without knowing," and I'm like, I could care less. And she was kind of like pushing the issue, and then eventually she just stopped for years and years, and she never once asked again. And apparently she was waiting for me to then bring it up. She was like, "If you're not ready, I'm not gonna force it. I'm waiting until you come to me and you let me know that this is something that you want to do." And that is my advice to any adopted parent out there, or a foster parent, whatever. If you know information such as that, like that is a big deal, whether you know where they are or whether you want to help find them, or be very careful with how you voice your concerns, because if the child is not ready for that, then they're never going to be ready when you want them to be. You're just going to need to give them their time, and they'll eventually come around to it. And if they never do, well, then maybe it's for the better, because sometimes God alters and changes our minds and sways us, to try to protect us. That's his way of protecting us from whatever it is that's on the other side. And if that individual is not strong enough to handle it, the Lord only puts us in situations that we can handle. And clearly, it's not meant to be if they don't want it. If they don't ask, it's not your place to make it happen for them. So, but when did I decide? I decided. Well, I didn't really decide. It's a that's a funny question, because I didn't one day say, I'm gonna do this, because I was like, I don't care. But when I wrote my autobiography book, I needed to know some information, so the book can be as accurate as possible. So I went to my foster mother's house, and I sat down with her and I said, "Do you have anything from, because she was the only person that came face to face with the people that directly knew my mother. She never knew my mother, and she saw her maybe one time across the courtroom, but that was it. There was no communication after that. Nobody kept in touch. She went to jail. She, did what she had to do. Excuse me. And there was no communication. So I needed the information. So I went over there and I asked her. I said, "Do you know what my real last name is?" and stuff like that. And the subject came up. "Do you mind if we just look for her real quick?" And I'm like, "No, that's not what I came over here for." So she typed in her Google, she typed in her full name on Google, and bam, there it was. It said what prison she was in and how long she's been there, and what family members were listed on the visitors list, and all of this. So I didn't really decide for myself. She decided for me, and that's why I just said what I said earlier. It's not anybody's place to decide, because looking back on it now, like I'm okay with everybody now, and I'm more than grateful to have found them. But let people decide for themselves, please. Like, I can't. Anyways, so um, has any of your family members done the same thing with their biological parents? Like, have they found their parents? Yes, a few of them have, but that's really not my business to touch on. So I'm just gonna. I wanted to address that question, but I'm gonna skip over it because it's not my business to tell. Um, yes, we pretty much all know, everybody. Like, there's seven. I have seven siblings that were adopted in this house, but I have 17 all in total. But the seven that are here that's adopted, that I don't really, that we're not, and don't really care for. They all know. Uh, so how did your how did you go about this search process? I didn't really have to search. It turns out when someone's incarcerated, that makes them easy to find. So I got it lucky. So I don't know if you're searching. I can tell you how to search, and because I'm looking for my brothers currently, so I can tell you how to search, and I actually found them. It's just it costs money to disclose the name of the family that adopted them, but I I I didn't have to search initially, so it's kind of different. But I do have input on that. So if you need any help with that, just let me know, and I'll be glad to help anybody that needs help. Um, um, Let me see. So my name. So a lot of people, I have a big issue with my name. Did a lot of people ask, did they change your name when they adopted you, or what was your birth name? Yes, they did change my name when they adopted me, but they didn't change my first name. They changed my middle and my last name, which I have since changed back. So, um, and there's a story on that. But my name at birth was Dennis Brian Robertson, and then what they changed it to was Dennis Christian Gianti, and yeah, so basically that was it. But then I changed it back because when I met my birth family, my aunt told me, you know, your grandmother would be very disappointed to know that you're not going by your family's name. And I'm like, what? And you know, my grandmother has since passed. She passed in 2013, and I never got to meet her because I came in contact with my family in 2016. So I thought that it was very important to at least honor that. I don't know the woman, but everyone says that we're like one and the same, and I look like her. It's crazy, but I, um, I just, you know, I get her point. So then my uncle started telling me that same thing, and then my cousins were like, "You're one of us. You're one of us." So I changed all my business names and my trademarking names. As for some people who know from early on, it used to be DCG Enterprises Incorporated, but now it's DVR Enterprises Incorporated. So I had to change my whole trademarking and everything. So at least if I really do make it big, at least my real name is out there, and I'm representing my birth family in some kind of way rather than just acting as if they're nobody and they don't exist. Especially now that I'm close to a lot of them, that would be a really big diss, and I don't think I could do that to them. So, um, have you ever wondered about how your biological mother named you? If she went through a long list of names she liked, or what she thought about would fit you, or anything like that? No. I just hate my first name. So everyone either calls me Christian or B or Christy or something, um, because I cannot stand like any variation to the word Christian, to the name Christian. I'll be okay with, because or B or Brian, or just calling me by my last name is fine too, or finding a nickname for me, anything but my first name. Do not call me by my first name. I absolutely hate it. I have always hated my first name, and I had told my mom that I hated my first name. Like, why did you name me that? And she gave all her kids proper names, so I can't really say that I would rather had a name that's not so common. It, it's just I hate the name. So, anyways, yeah, that's answers that. Um, how did the initial process of meeting your biological mother go? Um, well, like I said, she was incarcerated, so I had to go through the process, the jail process, and do what they you know, you have to submit the paperwork, and they have to make sure that you're safe and that you're not going to be pose a threat to the facility or anything like that. Which you know, like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm not going to. It's a prison, for crying out loud. I was terrified for my life to even go in there. So I'm just like, I gotta do it. You know, it's I gotta do it because I will never like be okay if I don't. So I said, all right, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do it. So I got my paperwork in order and I went in there and I saw her come out, and I didn't really have. We sat there for at least 10, 15 minutes as she was getting strip searched. But as soon as she walked through the door, like five, six people walked through the door at all at one time, into the little meeting room, the visiting room, and I immediately knew which one was her because I said, hell, she looked like the female version of me. So I knew. I say, that's my mom. Gosh, I was like, you're my twin. So, anyways, and it went well. And then told me later that she thought I was putting on an act and that I'm really not this proper or whatever. And I'm like, no, 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 dear. This is me. This is me. There's no. I wasn't putting on no act, but my adoptive mother had to be with me because I was underage at the time. So she was sitting there, and kudos to her because I know she was uncomfortable, but kudos to her anyways. And I really did thank her for that because without that, I couldn't have done that alone. And I'm glad I wasn't of age because I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have waited until the next year when she was released to then finally do that face to face because I would have had no choice at that point. But yeah, that was a very hard experience for me, and I'm glad that it happened the way that it did. Um, did you ever see pictures of your parents beforehand? No, I never had pictures. So I never knew what to expect. I guess that was the reasoning behind asking me that. No, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. I had no picture. I had no nothing. Um, which is odd, but I guess there was just no pictures. And even in my family, there's hardly any pictures of my mom. So, because she was always running the streets and doing things she wasn't supposed to do as a child, and she was a true gangster. She used to rob people at gunpoint. But anyways, that's a story time for another day. Um, yeah, she was a true goon, honey. And I mean I that's my mom. And I'm so amused by that because of how I grew up. And, you know, I wasn't exactly the one to play with either. So I was like, oh, I see. It's in my blood to be this way. So, anyways, that was interesting. Um, how much do you know about the circumstances of your biological parents' relationship? Again, extremely, extremely personal. And all I know is that my mother and father had three kids. And even though my mom has five kids, no, 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 correction, four. My mother and father had four kids, and one of them is she has five, but one of them is not my father's. One of them is some from by another man, and so that makes him my half brother, if I'm getting this correctly. And one of them also did die at birth. So there's only three of us that are still alive. Two of them are in the system still that I have found, but I just have not gone through the process to, because I feel like I, it'll be a while till I go through that process because some people just don't want to be found. Because I damn sure didn't want to be found. There was a time in my life where I felt like I wasn't ready, but because they're older, I can't say they're ready, and I can't say they've probably been looking their whole life because they probably have not. So I don't want to rain on their parade by showing up and we're your family and kind of dumping all our chaos on people I really don't know, but I you know have the strongest you know energy bond with because that's my sibling. But I don't know. I just don't want to pull anybody else into the dysfunction. Um, do you do you have a close enough relationship with her to ask her about certain things? Um, yes, yeah. I can ask my mom anything. Like my birth mom, I can ask her anything, anything at all, and she will tell me without up like no hesitation. She doesn't play those kind of games. She says that I've waited half my life and well my whole life, um, and I deserve to know. And I agree with that statement. So yeah, you're gonna tell me everything. And don't hold back, don't sugarcoat nothing, because I damn sure won't be sugarcoating shit for you. So yeah, tell me everything. Um, what about your dad? What about him? I've learned in this process that adopted kids really only care about their mother, the maternal bond. The father's kind of like just there. Yes. Do I know who he is? Yeah. Haven't met him. Not directly, but I do know who he is. There's at least been some kind of conversation. Um, that's as far as it goes. You know, discussed him one time since this whole ordeal and have never brought him up again. He's just not interesting to me. I don't care to know. I just don't care to know anything. He's got 5 kids on his side, and I got a few sisters over there. And, that's as far as it goes. I talk to my siblings, though, via Facebook. I talk to all of them. They're cool. Great. Um, are you glad that you had a closed case adoption? No. No. Am I lucky that I didn't go house to house and experience God knows what? Like a few of my friends? Yeah. But am I happy about the closed, like the adoption closed case, of like all by itself? No. No. And I'm being completely honest. I'm being as honest as I can possibly be. There are things that I'm just not okay with. That the state has done, that the state let happen. The negligence. So, no. Um, can you tell us about your parents' decisions to adopt? They couldn't have any kids of their own, and she never really found out why. She could care less after, X amount of miscarriages. You just kind of like, you don't really care. You just say, this is probably not the route that God wants us to go, so you try another route. And that route was to adopt. Why 7 black children? That I don't know. But yeah, so that's really as far as that goes. Maybe because my mom is very into stats, and black people are the ones that need the homes the most, and that's what she saw fit. So that's what she did. Um, have you started to locate certain things about yourself in your biological parents, or other traits in your adopted parents? That one is a deep, deep question. And yes, a million times over. My adopted parents, the pieces of them will forever be in me, as if we are connected genetically. Like my mom and I, my adopted mother and I, are like two peas in a pod. Our minds are exactly the same. The way she says things is exactly the way I say things. The way she expects things and what she expects is the same thing. She looks at me like a mini her, and I look at her as my hero. She's taught me more than she'll ever know. Yeah. So, and as far as my birth parents, hell yeah, I see it immediately. Immediately, I see those traits. Those traits as I talk to my birth mom, I see them. I see them. Did you ever leverage your adoptedness against your mom while you guys were fighting a lot? Again, a very deep and personal question. I probably could have stabbed my mom, and it wouldn't have hurt as much as me saying, "You're really not my mom." Have I made that mistake? Yeah, several times. Do I regret it? Absolutely. 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 Last question. Could you either could you imagine either giving up a child for adoption or adopting a child? No. Never. Never. I, it's, I, no. If it's any child of mine, it will be with me, no matter what the circumstances are. Sometimes it's kind of like you're doing the child an injustice or a disservice by keeping the child knowing that you can't take care of them or what or what have you. But I just couldn't bear not to have mine with me. And as far as adopting myself, I'll never do that either because of what I went through and what the things I've done and the things I've seen from my older siblings. Adoption will never be an option with me, never in a million years. It just won't. I have too much trauma from this whole experience, from this whole ordeal, that'll be my story till the day I die to ever adopt a child. So, I guess that pretty much sums it up. If you want part 3 to this video, any other questions, follow me on social media, which will be in the description down below, and add me on Snapchat, and you can ask me all those questions. And whew, let's make them a little bit more light. But I am very glad that I got to do this video. So stay perfectly imperfect till I see you guys next time. Bye, guys.